Hi everyone, today I'm sharing another what I eat in a day as a vegan with you, and so here's what I had to eat one day this week. For breakfast I made these blueberry jam Oatie slices, and for this I preheated the oven to 180 degrees Celsius. Then in a large mixing bowl I added in the oats, the oat flour, the almond meal, the flaxseed, the coconut sugar, vanilla powder and salt. I mixed those together with a spatula, and then one by one I added in the melted coconut oil, maple syrup, brown rice syrup and plant milk, and I mixed that together with a spatula until the mixture had formed. It was quite crumbly, but it stuck together at the same time. I then took 3/4 of the mixture and pressed it evenly into a baking dish. Mine was 18 by 27 centimeters. Using the spatula, and then I placed that in the oven to bake for 10 minutes. I then removed it from the oven and spread the blueberry chia jam evenly on top of the baked base. Then I took the remaining quarter of the Oatie mixture and I just crumbled it over the top of the jam, and then I placed it back in the oven to bake for a further 20 minutes. Once it was done, I removed it from the oven and I just left it to cool down a little before cutting it into 6 slices. And you can alternatively place this in the fridge for an hour to firm up further before you eat it. So yeah, I just had one of those slices for my breakfast. These just make for such great little breakfast bar bakes, which could pretty much see you through every day of the week for a whole week. And if you used a wider baking dish or tin, you could make more of them in smaller squares. They're great as a snack too, or as a dessert, because they're a little bit like a crumble, and they'd be amazing with some vegan ice cream or vegan custard on the top. For something mid-morning, I had an apple and made a cup of tea from Dr. Clare Apothecary, and this range is made up of different boxed herbal blends to provide natural relief for certain concerns. For example, digestive, which contains peppermint, congestion, which is great if you have a cold or any sinus problems, and women's, which is a good one when you're PMSing. They also have a winter warmer tea, which is lovely and comforting for this time of year. And for 35 years of her career, Dr. Clare was a GP, and she integrated herbal medicine into her practice when treating patients. The medicinal healing properties of herbs and plants and how effective they are for healing and treating certain health concerns was something she became very passionate about, and 20 years on she has formulated these herbal tea blends with your health and well-being in mind. It's one reason why I really like her teas, because I tend to avoid using traditional medicine as much as I can and instead opt for using natural remedies where appropriate. I'm currently drinking the stress tea. We've had a really stressful year moving countries and not everything going to plan. I think the effects are still taking their toll on me, but with chamomile, which relaxes the digestive system and helps clear the mind, rosemary, which relaxes the nervous system and gut, and wild oats, which provide the nerves with nutrition, this really helps me to relax when I'm feeling tense and helps me with a better sleep pattern, something that is really affected when I'm stressed. I drink it in this rather large mug because one sachet is equivalent to 3 regular tea bags and should be used with no less than 1 pint of boiling water. So you could also drink this from a flask or make it in a teapot and then drink it throughout the day. I always have drunk my cup of tea with a tea bag still in it. I feel it has longer to infuse that way, and I get the most out of it by leaving it in. I made my spicy sweet potato, coconut and ginger soup. For this I first chopped the 2 onions and then I added them to a large pan with the olive oil and just allowed them to soften on a medium heat. I then minced the garlic and I added that to the pan and fried it off for around a minute. Next I grated the ginger straight into the pan, and then I finely chopped the red chilli, reserving a few pieces just to garnish at the end, and I added that to the pan too. I fried everything off for a few minutes before then adding in the turmeric and then I fried it off for a further 2 minutes. I peeled the sweet potatoes and then just roughly chopped them up into cubes and added those to the pan, mixed everything well and then cooked that off for around 3 minutes. Next I poured in the vegetable stock and the tin of coconut milk, and I seasoned it really well with some salt and black pepper. I gave it a good stir and then I brought it up to the boil and allowed it to cook on a medium to high heat for 3 minutes. I then turned the heat back down to a low medium, covered it and just left it to simmer for 20 minutes. Once the 20 minutes was up, I then added in the majority of the fresh chopped coriander and then blended it with a hand blender. You could transfer it over to a food processor or a blender, and I just blended it up until it was smooth. I then served up a portion in a bowl, added on the remaining red chilli and coriander on the top along with a couple of pumpkin seeds, and then I had a couple of slices of toasted rye on the side. This time of year I am very much into making soup for lunches and dinners. They're so easy to make and there's so much goodness in them. You can come up with so many different recipes using all sorts of vegetables. I just find they're really warming and comforting, and this one has a bit of a kick to it from the chilli and the ginger, which I actually had left over from the curry that I made in my previous video, so it's a good way to use those up. But it's also creamy from the coconut and the sweet potato, plus the coriander just makes it really fragrant. This freezes really well too, so you can make it up in big batches, though I usually use it within 2 weeks whilst it's still as fresh as possible. For an afternoon snack I had some celery and made this seedy hummus. I just sliced up a few sticks of celery and then I took some hummus in a small pot and added on some mixed seeds. These were chia, sunflower, pumpkin and sesame, and then just simply used it as a dip for the celery sticks. It just added a little something to the hummus, and you could switch up the seeds you use too. You could also use poppy seeds or millet, and you could even toast them beforehand as well. It's a really good snack. I'll definitely be making this more often. For dinner I made spaghetti with a roast vegetable sauce. For this I first preheated the oven to 180 degrees Celsius. I then roughly chopped the aubergine, the tomatoes, peppers and onion, and then I added them to a large roasting dish. Added in the whole cloves of peeled garlic, drizzled on the olive oil, and then I sprinkled on the dried herbs and also the fresh oregano. I tossed everything really well and then placed it in the oven for 35 minutes to roast. In the meantime, I filled a large pan with boiling water, added in the salt, and then I added in the spaghetti, enough for 2 people, and once it was cooked I then drained that off and just set it to the side. In the same pan I added in the spinach and just left it to wilt down. I then removed the roast vegetables from the oven and transferred them over to my blender. To that I then added in the sun-dried tomatoes, the nutritional yeast, the chili flakes, and I seasoned it well with salt and black pepper, and then I pulsed it until it formed a chunky sauce, but not so much so that it turned into a soup. I then added the pasta sauce straight to the pan with the wilted spinach, and at this point it is going to look like it's something you're not going to want to eat, but I promise it does taste amazing. I stirred it together and then warmed it gently for a few minutes before then adding back the cooked spaghetti. I turned the pasta through the sauce and the spinach, and then I squeezed in the juice of half a lemon, turned it through again, and then I served that up between 2 plates. And then I added the toasted pine nuts on the top, as well as some fresh basil leaves. I have been dreaming of creating this recipe ever since I thought of the idea. It turned out exactly how I envisioned it, and it's just now become one of my favourite pasta dishes, as you can probably tell from the big old pile of it on my plate. There's so much flavour from all of the roasted vegetables, the garlic, the herbs, and the pine nuts on top just add that buttery texture. This works great as a sauce for all kinds of pasta, and again, the sauce freezes really well, so you can have it made ready, just defrost it and then add it to your pasta once that is cooked. Obviously when there's basil we have to share with the bunnies, but as you can see they don't always like to share with each other. For dessert we opened a box of these Divine Mint Thins. These are basically the vegan equivalent to After 8 chocolates, which used to be one of my favourite things. They're a mint cream covered in dark chocolate and they are amazing cold straight out of the fridge. They're really refreshing after a meal. They'd be great for like a dinner party, but we just had a couple and that was enough for us, so the whole box could probably last us about a week. That's it for another day on my plate. All of the recipes featured in today's video are written and linked below. I have been listening to all of your requests and I have finally relaunched my blog, so I'll be posting recipes over on there now too. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and I'll see you again soon.